Now let's talk about the second house and the 11th house. So what we'll do in this video is, first of all, explain these two houses separately from each other. So in other words, we'll explain what is the second house, what does it signify, what is the 11th house, what does that signify. Then, with that explained, we're equipped to go into the next topic, which is how do you interpret charts where the second house and the 11th house combine. Now, in case you're wondering how houses can combine, there's a conventional way and a bit of an unconventional way. The conventional way is for the lords to combine, and the unconventional way is for the houses to stack up with each other. So for lords, for that first way, for example, you could have the second lord in the 11th house. That's an example of the second and 11th houses combining. Or you could have the 11th lord in the second house. Or you could have the second and 11th lords joining somewhere, conjoining each other somewhere, or mutually aspecting each other. Those are the conventional ways that astrologers would see that the second and 11th houses are working together, and then you would need to interpret them in the way that we're going to talk about in this video. The unconventional way, as I mentioned briefly, is if the houses stack up together. So what I mean by that is if the 11th house is the most prominent house in the chart and the second house is the next most prominent, then they're combining or they're stacking up with each other, or vice versa. Or if the 11th house is the most prominent and the second is the least, or vice versa, then they're also stacking by opposition. So for that information about how to stack the houses or order the houses, you need a whole separate course, really, not just even a video to explain it. But I have a report that does all the calculations for you, and if you want to order that report, you can go to victorcara.com and add a / and an H, so the link is in the video description below. It assesses all your houses, and one of the valuable things that it gives you is this code, the DNA code of the houses, which shows you the stack and the ordering of your houses. Now, let's proceed. Now that the table of contents are all sorted, let's proceed, and we'll talk about these two houses independently from each other. Starting with the second house. What is it? It's the area of sky that's just below the eastern horizon, so it's the foundation for the eastern horizon. Therefore, what does it symbolize? It symbolizes the foundations for everything that the east symbolizes. The east is where the sunrise, so it symbolizes beginning and visibility. So the second house is the foundation for the beginning and the foundation for the visibility. It's pro-beginning and pro-visibility. See, I'm using the word foundations a lot because that really is the meaning of pro-beginning. The thing that helps something else come into being is its foundation. And this word foundation is really very useful to keep in mind whenever you're trying to imagine or envision what the second house is going to be signifying. Another thing about foundations is stability. They stabilize things. The second house really represents stabilization and stability. Expanding on the concept of foundations, everything that is the native's foundation is also signified by the second house. So, for example, the body of the native is founded on their family, right? The family is the foundations for your birth. So the family is signified by the second house. Not just the family, but people who also stabilize you and support you. So also like friends who act like family and all sorts of supporters. Also, the wealth is the foundation that allows us to do things. So wealth is signified by the second house, and our health is a foundation which allows us to do things. So family, health, and wealth are three very, very important examples of foundations. And foundations is really the backbone of what the second house signifies. Second house is also pro-visibility. It's helping the sun rise. So pro-visibility means anti-invisibility. So it means learning things, showing things, knowing things. The second house is a house which signifies our knowledge, our ability to see and understand things. And it's about things which are seeable, touchable, realizable. So it's a house of realism, realistic things, and practical things, practicality. Now you know really what you need to know to be able to work with the second house in a chart. Now let's do the same thing for the 11th. Where is the 11th house in the sky? You look up and then just look a little bit to the east and you'll be looking at the 11th house. It's the eastern border of the upper quadrant of the sky. So the symbolism of the 11th house is based on the upper quadrant, which means public life, visible life. And it's on the eastern border, which means how these things are impacting towards self. So basically, the 11th house shows every way that we benefit from society, or the ways that society gives to us. You can break these into 3 categories for the ease of organization and understanding, and I would describe these as interpersonal opportunities. The way that we benefit from society, we have interpersonal opportunities. We get cultural opportunities. Society is a bed of culture. And we also get commercial opportunities because we get a market. So these are the 3 pillars or backbones for the 11th house: interpersonal things, cultural things, and commercial things. On the topic of interpersonal things, the 11th house is the house for socializing, how we socialize with people. And it's the house of entertainment, which is like the essence of socializing. So it's a very important house for entertainers, you'll see. Friendship. Socializing means interacting with people, so it means friends. Second house was friends too, but second house is friends that are like your family, people that work for you, people that support you, people that are on your side. 11th house, you can also use the words friends for it, but these people are not necessarily the people that have your back. They're the people that hang out with you. They're the people that you do things with. They may or may not be true friends. There are people that you're socializing with. That type of friendship is in the 11th house, so we can describe it better probably as social network. 11th house is our social network. Next, on the topic of the 11th house being cultural, it's the house of refinement and sophistication, culture. And therefore, it's the house of arts. So entertainment and arts, sophistication, refinement, ability, talent to perform arts is all the 11th house thing. Even the places where arts are enjoyed, like theaters, are 11th house places. Then finally, the third backbone of the 11th house is the commercial backbone, because the society provides the self a market to interact with and to sell things to. So the 11th house represents what you do commercially. What you get commercially is your profit, your income. It's to the eastern side of the 10th house. So the 10th house career, what do you get from your career? You get paid. You get salary. So the 11th house is salary and profit. It's also just money in general. The second house is also money, but the second house money is more like wealth. Just like the friends, the difference between friends in 2 and 11 is the same as the difference between money in 2 and 11. Money in house 2 is your basic financial bracket that you can use to fund your life. The 11th house is like social money, spending money, enjoyable money, profit. Now, the last thing to mention about the 11th house is where all 3 of these backbones go. They all point to enjoyment. The 11th house is the house of pleasures and enjoyment, because that's what you do while socializing and entertaining. That's what you enjoy from arts and refinement, and that's what you do with your money. You're spending money. So it's a fun house. It's an enjoying house. It's a pleasurable house. Okay, now we have houses 2 and 11 sorted. We know what they're all about. We know what we need to know to be able to read them in charts. Now let's put them together and see what happens. As always, we use our trusty, tried and true astrological technique, which is to look for resonance between the 2 things involved. So we will look for a resonance between 2 and 11. A resonance means something that sounds together. So in other words, if the second house is talking about something and the 11th house is talking about basically the same thing, that's a resonance. And then you analyze if the resonance is harmonious or disharmonious. So for example, the second house talks about wealth. The 11th house talks about wealth. So this is a resonance which is harmonic. And so the interpretation that we get from this is that if you have a chart where there's connections of the 11th and second house, then you should expect the native knows about money. They're good with money. They understand cash flow. And the money is going to come to them kind of easily because they just understand they have natural talent for what to do with money, to get more of it. So since money comes easy, one of the side effects of a 2-11 combination is that they don't have to really stress or work hard for money. That means that they don't have to resort to anything unbecoming. They don't have to resort to any immoral means because they get the money by moral means. They get the money naturally, easily. So it's a wholesome feeling of money. Money has these two sides. Maybe we have some kind of sleazy, money-hungry jerk. It's not a 2 and 11 combination producing that. We have a person who gets money naturally because they're good and they don't need to be immoral about it. Another thing here, because of the wealth connection, you expect the person to have money. That means that they're going to be happy. Now, I know money doesn't buy you happiness, but money buys us material happiness. Money buys a lack of material frustration. And that's what you should expect with a 2-11 combination. Now, another area of resonance between the 2nd and the 11th house is that the 2nd house is talking about friends and the 11th house is talking about friends. So in a chart where the houses 2 and 11 are combining, expect this person to be well liked. People find it pretty easy to appreciate them. People kind of feel attracted to them. They want to partner with them, both socially and also for business and profit. These people are attractors of partnerships. So they're likable and also they have a lot of like for others. They're friendly people. So if you combine this with the money thing, they're friendly people and they have a lot of money, so they're pretty charitable. Expect a 2-11 combination to be a charitable, generous person, and especially if you find 11 going into 2. If you find the 11th house is going to the 2nd house, or if you're stacking houses and you find that the 11th house is being upheld by the 2nd house, then what you're seeing is that the person's money is going into family and support. So they like to spend money on family. They like to spend money on supporting people. So especially if 11 is going to 2, they're especially friendly. But in any combination of 2 and 11, in any direction, expect the native to be friendly, likable, and liking, and therefore liking to do things for people. Now, are there any dissonances between the 2nd and 11th house? You may think that there is one. So, for example, the 2nd house is practicality, and the 11th house is sophistication. So this may seem like an example of a dissonant resonance, because practical people are not very sophisticated. Sophisticated people are not very practical, right? No, it's not really the case here. If you look carefully at the type of practicality that the 2nd house signifies, it's a practicality that comes with knowledge. So in other words, it's an ability to see things, and therefore an ability to deal with things in a realistic way. It's not a lack of sophistication. It's a product of knowledge. Knowledge is actually a refinement or a clarification. So actually speaking, the 2nd and 11 combinations are actually kind of good on this point of making a person perceptive and sensitive to finer details of things. So don't make that mistake of thinking that that's a dissonance. All right, there you have it. Hopefully you now know a lot more about the 2nd house and the 11th house and how to envision their combinations than you did a few minutes ago when you started watching the video. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about it or anything you want to say. Leave a like on the video to help out if you do think it's worth it, and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to make sure you don't miss the rest of the series. Next one we'll be doing is 2nd and 12th. Thank you so much.